Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the mindset of a Scientologist and how anyone could possibly join Scientology in today's world when there's so much information out there about the negative side of what happens in Scientology. Now, my story is a bit of an interesting one because I joined Scientology having already heard a lot about the abuses and negative stuff in the press that you hear about Scientology. I first kind of came across it having watched the BBC Panorama documentary that John Sweeney did about Scientology, and he was followed in the video and made it very, very clear that Scientology is a bad thing. But there was also a point in this documentary where Tommy Davis, the spokesperson for the Church of Scientology at that point in time, managed to provoke John Sweeney to have a reaction on camera where he was shouting. It's a very iconic moment in British television where he's like, "You were not there," because Tommy Davis kept pushing his buttons and wanted him to react in such a way. So that Scientology could have the ammunition to say, of course this guy is biased and he's going to produce a bad documentary or program about Scientology because look at him, he's screaming and shouting, he obviously isn't impartial on the subject. Now, having watched that, you would imagine most people would say, God, what a crazy thing, all these stories and horrible things that happen to people who are in Scientology with disconnection and wacky beliefs in aliens and Xenu and all this sort of stuff. How could anyone possibly, join after seeing that and hearing all of that? And I wanted to explain a little bit about how that can still occur and how it did with me. So I've always been a critical thinker. I've always been someone that questions everything and tries to further my understanding before making my own mind up about something. And sometimes that's to my detriment. And I think with Scientology, the thing to understand here is I watched that documentary and I thought, look, maybe it is as bad as it seems. I never discredited in my mind the negative stories or the abuses that they were talking about in the documentary. But I also saw on the face of it that John Sweeney did have this reaction and he was trying to make Scientology look as bad as possible. So in my mindset, I wanted to find out more because it was something that was controversial. It was something that there are a lot of polar opposite opinions about. And I wanted to figure out in my own mind what I thought was true before deciding how I felt about the topic. And I did a personality test online and then went in to get my results because I wanted to know whether it is as bad as it seems and as it came across in the documentary, or whether they had just, annoyed the wrong person who happened to be a journalist on TV, and, that guy then had it out for Scientology to make it seem as bad as possible. So when I went in to get my personality results, I didn't go in all blasé and kind of thinking, yeah, whatever you tell me, I'll believe. I was very critical and asking all of the questions you would expect of someone who has seen all of this bad press about Scientology. And the thing you have to understand about the way Scientology works in getting new people in is their way of answering questions that satisfies your need to know more information or to feel satisfied that you've got the answer that you're looking for. Now, the prime example is the Xenu story. I've talked about this previously on other people's channels and interviews and things, but one common way of answering the Xenu question we would have when I was on staff, people would come in and say, "Oh, I've heard about Scientology, you believe in Xenu, this over-galactic warlord, alien person that threw H-bombs in volcanoes, and, that's why we're all doomed," and so on. And I would always say, and this is a very common response to this in London Org, was, no, look, what you don't understand is L. Ron Hubbard was a prolific science fiction writer, which is a fact, before he ventured down the Dianetics and Scientology route. Now, where that fact gets twisted in the way that information was presented was by saying, look, he wrote lots of books and science fiction writing to earn some money, and then with that money he then started researching the mind to then write Dianetics and Scientology. And what a lot of people don't understand, they think we believe in the science fiction writings and books that he made, which is just not the case. Yes, he wrote lots of stories about aliens and galactic warlords and so on, but that's not the scripture of Scientology. It's a separate thing. Now, as someone who has heard these stories before and read online that they believe in aliens and so on, when someone says that to you who is OT8, which is the highest you can get in the Scientology auditing, processing, so therefore they would have seen the scriptures that are revealed at OT3 that tell you the Xenu story, you kind of go, okay, well that kind of makes sense, and you would know because you've done that level, you've seen those scriptures, and so you seem genuine to me, and that makes sense. And you go, okay, fine. But always in the back of my mind, I was thinking, cool, well, that satisfies my question for now. But obviously there's more digging to do, and I'll find out later on. But, they've given me an answer that I'm fairly satisfied with now. And it goes on like that in Scientology. So every little thing you ask about, disconnection was another one. I would ask, in my first couple of days in the org and being on course, etc., I hear about this disconnection policy where Scientology separates families and stops people talking to one another because one person has left the church. Is that true? And the answer that I got at the time was, well, yes, disconnection is a policy that, we implemented, is something that we do, but it's often misunderstood, right? And they put it into perspective like this. They would say, Alex, so imagine you had a friend who started being mean to you and would start treating you badly, and you suddenly decided, I don't want to be around this person, right? I don't want to spend my time around someone who's mean or not very nice to me. So you would then distance yourself from them and go about your life without talking to them and, living in a different social circle or whatever. You would just naturally, instinctively do that anyway, right? And I'd go, yeah, that makes sense. And they go, well, that's what disconnection is a personal choice that someone makes if they are a Scientologist and someone they know is against Scientology, and they decide that they're having a bad impact on their life or not being a positive influence, or they're not being nice around them, or for whatever reason, they can choose to disconnect, and that would involve them saying to them, I don't want to talk to you anymore, and distancing yourself and cutting your communication line with them. Makes sense. And that is true, right? That is what disconnection is, and that's how the policy, how it works. But what they neglect to mention is the forceful way in which it is implemented. And this is something I wanted to talk a bit about in this video, is this idea of being forced to do things in Scientology that are negative. So, for example, disconnection, right? When you hear a story about a Scientology family being split up and being forced to disconnect, that sounds really horrible, right? And for the people who are not Scientologists, to have a family member who is a Scientologist, cut all ties with them, not talk to them, don't want anything to do with you anymore, that's a really horrible thing to go through for anyone to experience. There's no denying that. But what you have to understand is the Scientologist who is doing that, they're not forced and coerced into doing it in a way that they don't want to disconnect and they are being made to do it. It does happen, but not as explicitly as that. A Scientologist is who makes that decision to disconnect from someone, a family member. That's a really big decision to make, and for them to do that, they are going to be so far in already and in indoctrination that they genuinely believe that that's the right thing to do, because they believe in Scientology scripture and they believe that Scientology is the best thing you can do in your life to, help humanity and make a difference in this world. And therefore, if someone's getting in the way, even if they're a family member, it makes sense to not let this person get in the way of your spiritual enlightenment and your mission to help save the planet and so on, right? Why would you let something like that get in the way of all these big, great, wonderful things we're trying to achieve in Scientology? And the Scientologist would go, yeah, it kind of makes sense. It does kind of suck because, I love my family and I don't want to disconnect from them. But yeah, you're right. I believe that Scientology is doing great things and I'm working on a purpose here and we're achieving bigger things and better things. And, if I have to disconnect from someone, yeah, it will suck. But, that's what I have to do because it's more important that I help other people. It's more important that I help, unite people on this mission to clear the planet. And so they might not be happy about it, but they will do it because it's their decision. Officially on paper, they've decided to do it. No one in Scientology will ever say, you have to disconnect. If you don't disconnect, then, that's it. But they will do that in so many words in a kind of non-explicit way. They'll say, you need to disconnect, otherwise you'll be declared a suppressor person. And if you're declared a suppressor person, that means you have to handle a situation, you have to pay a freeloader debt, you can't have Scientology processing, which is absolutely fine. There's no hard feelings if you want to stop doing Scientology, right? That's your call. But that's the way it is. If someone's getting in the way of your spiritual enlightenment, surely it just makes sense to not have that happen, and you are in control of this. So, why wouldn't you disconnect from them so that you can continue in your spiritual enlightenment? So it is forced, but in a really kind of coercive way that makes you believe you're the one making the decision and you're the one actively deciding to do this thing because you think it's best and you think it's going to help you. It's not Scientology kind of force you to do it, but in a way that manipulates your mindset so that you as a Scientologist don't generally sit there and think, God, they're making me disconnect from my family, what a horrible thing, blah blah blah. Because anyone who's gone through that thought process generally would leave at that point because they would realize that they're being manipulated. The way they manipulate you is so sly because they get your mind to think that you're the one making that decision for yourself and that it is the right thing to do, right? I don't know if I've explained that very well. It's kind of a complicated mindset to get your head around. But that runs true with so many things in Scientology in terms of, if you are lying to someone or someone is giving you a bad time or whatever it is, you believe that that is the right thing to do, right? And if you have to force someone to buy a book, like I did in a previous video where I talked about invading someone's privacy is policy in how to sell a book in Scientology, you don't sit there and think, God, that's a really horrible thing to do, to invade someone's privacy to get them to buy a book. Like, I don't want anything to do with that, because it's not presented in that way. That is ultimately what you're doing. But they present the information in a way that makes you think you are doing a great thing here. This is really important, and the ends justify the means, and therefore, you have to do this because that's what you want to do, right? Isn't it? Don't you want to clear the planet? And it's the same thing with the Sea organization, and they really, really love to love bomb you and give you a bit of a sense of ego and self-importance, right? I think when I was posted in London Org as Director of Public Book Sales, the title sounds very grand. It's a director role. I was a teenager, so at the age of 17 or whatever I was, being told you're a director of something, that makes you think, God, they really value me here and they can see my potential. They're not just posting me as some intern, cleaning the toilets. They're giving me some real responsibility here. And selling books is, one of the most important things you can do in Scientology. Those are the policies that you're shown. And so the fact that they're trusting me to do this really important job, that's a big part of the important job Scientology is doing of clearing the planet and saving people from, the reactive mind and all these horrible things that are going on in the world. It makes you think, wow, I'm valued and I'm important. They see that I can achieve great things. They can see that I can do what I set my mind to, and that just reinforces in your mind that these guys are people you should listen to and people you should trust, because they see something in you that other people don't. If I was to apply for a similar role at a company at that age, I'd likely get laughed out the door. They would say, you're not going to be a director of sales. If anything, you're 17, you just come out of school, you don't know anything, you don't have any experience. Of course not. Why would you even apply for that job? So they give you these positive reinforcements that make you in your mind think, yeah, see, these guys are making me feel valued. They recognize something about me, and so therefore they must be onto something. So I'm gonna do more. I'm gonna learn more, and it's those little seeds that they drop over time that, coupled with actually practicing Scientology, applying different techniques and things that you learn in L. Ron Hubbard's writings and books and lectures, and upon reading those and applying those and getting these little seeds of reinforcement that make you feel like you're really important and you're in control of your life and you are valued and you know what you're doing, right? You might not have much experience, but you are a spiritual being with more power and with more energy and with more ability than, anything you could ever imagine. So, we're going to give you a chance here. This is your opportunity to shine. It goes on and on and on like that until you get to the point where you were where I was. I'd signed my SEAL contract. The SEAL contract is a 1 billion year contract, which is not legally binding. It's a religious commitment, is how it's sold to you. But the idea is that you're agreeing to spend not just your whole life, but also all future lives that you're going to have, dedicate them towards Scientology and progressing the goals of Scientology and clearing the planet and getting ethics in and applying L. Ron Hubbard technology and policy. So you wouldn't do that if you didn't think at that time that Scientology was doing great things, right? If you walked into the door of a church of Scientology, they wouldn't say, cool, great, welcome, here's a 1 billion year contract to sign your life over. They don't do that until you're indoctrinated enough that you really truly believe that this is something that's helping people, right? And they do that by giving you little bits of help yourself and little bits of techniques that you can apply, but also, as I said, reinforcing this ego and your self-confidence to the point where you feel empowered to make the right decision that you want to, as per what you think and what you want and what you need. You're making this decision for yourself. No one is forcing you to sign a SEAL contract. So it's sold to you in a way that gives you lots of promise and a lot of hope, and you're already in the mindset of Scientology being the answer. So of course you're going to sign your SEAL contract, because you want to clear the planet, don't you? You want to help people, don't you? So if you want to help people and you're doing Scientology and you believe that that's helping people, why wouldn't you sign your SEAL contract? Like, why wouldn't you? Because in your mind, in that moment, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to live a horrible life with no money and I'm not going to have any uniform and I'm going to have horrible rice and bean dinner when I'm not upstat. You're not thinking about the negatives. And even if you are, you're thinking that's okay because that's worth it. Because if you live a life with some small suffering for the sake of clearing the planet and helping humanity, so what if you don't have the most amazing, successful financial career this lifetime, because you've got millions of lifetimes to come, and you've had millions of lifetimes already gone. So there's no harm in sacrificing the next 1 billion years to help Scientology, because you've got nothing to lose. You're an immortal spiritual being that will live on forever and ever. So It's a really in-depth thing to get your head around, but I just felt like I wanted to clarify that mindset of how someone can be drawn into Scientology having heard all of the bad press, and how they get your mind to get from someone who's never done Scientology and has only heard bad things about them, about Scientology, get you from that point to signing your life away to do this and get Scientology and ethics in on the planet. That's a really big change to happen, but it happens very, very quickly. I joined Scientology in 2010, 2011, and I signed my SEAL contract in 2014. 3 years later, I was ready to move to Flag and be a monk or a nun of Scientology. That's a very short period of time to have a complete change of mindset, and this is how they do it. I hope that makes sense and it wasn't too rambly, but please do leave your questions in the comments below. I'm happy to continue this conversation. I will be doing more videos about this, including some live Q&As coming up. I will let you know about those in the future as and when they come. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Poe on the go yesterday. That was really, really fun and really great. Thank you, Poe, if you're watching this, for having me on. It was really nice to talk and go cover all the topics that we did. Another update on Catherine Olson. We had a really great chat earlier in the week. We are going to be doing the same thing next week, continuing our conversation on Scientology, the Sea Org and ethics and so on. So please stay tuned for that. And I hope you guys all have a great weekend. I don't know if I'm going to be posting much over the next couple of days because I'm working on a few things behind the scenes. But who knows? I might get inspired and do a couple more videos, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. If you want to support the channel, the best way of doing that is liking, subscribing, commenting, hit the bell to get notifications when these videos go up. If you want to make a financial contribution, you can always buy me a coffee using the link in the description below and on my channel. But I'm not in this for the money. It's just great to be able to cover the expenses of, you know, my equipment and my platforms that I use for streaming and so on. But as I said, the best way of supporting is interacting and engaging below. So if you've got any questions for me that you want me to answer in an upcoming video, please leave them down below. I will read all of them and I will do my best to answer them all. But that's it for now, guys. See you soon.